what we really want to do in the next hour and a bit is to walk you through Connect and what we've been learning from the last 18 months of running this. And some of you are certified suppliers and some of you are interested in Connect in some way, or we've contacted you at some stage and you've been unable to become certified at that time. So that's who's in the room. And for anyone who's just arrived, what we did before now is we had a buyer meeting this morning. So we had pretty much all of our Victorian buyers, 9 I think of our Victorian buyers were in the room. There's probably a couple who weren't there. And we do this with them probably 3 times a year. We bring them all together and we spend 2 hours with them, and we, I guess, share information between the buyers, and we get them to actually educate each other about what they're doing. Then we talk to them a bit about what we're seeing and experiencing, and then we tell them about any trends that are in the marketplace. And I guess for us, Sam and I were having a conversation late last year, and we said we should do the same for the social enterprises. I think it's really critical that social enterprises, it's not exactly the same format, but we'd like to use today as an opportunity to get you up to speed with what we've been learning over the last 18 months, which is really when we started Connect 18 months ago. So I'm just looking, haven't looked at this deck until right now, except on Thursday, because we did this in Sydney on Thursday. So just to give you a sense, this is a national program. If I wander, does that matter, John? It's okay? A little, okay, I won't. I won't wander. So we're running a national program, and we have about 20 buyers across Australia at the moment, and we're getting more all the time. This time last year we had about 6 buyers. So we launched in November 2015. We got 8 pretty quickly, or 6 pretty quickly, and the last 14 have come on very quickly in 12 months. And we feel like the next 12 months is going to be quite significant. So what we're going to spend is I want to cover a few things today. I want to talk about social procurement really broadly, because some people don't understand that language. And I put out a post on LinkedIn recently. I've become addicted to LinkedIn. And I put a post out and someone said, what's social procurement? It's just jargon, you know. And I thought, look, it probably is to most people because I use it all the time. And then I said, it's a way of delivering social impact. And he said, what's social impact? That's just jargon. I'm from marketing. I said, well, God, how else can I say social impact not using the word social and impact, you know? There can't be a way of doing that. So I'm going to touch on social procurement, the environment supporting the growth of social procurement in Australia right now. We'll talk nationally, and at times we'll talk at a state base. We want to talk about social traders' work in this space, what Connect is, and the scale of the opportunity. It is Liz. Liz is coming in, isn't she? So Liz is going to come in from the Level Crossing Removal Authority. They've been a real catalyst, I guess, for some of this activity, and she'll talk to you a bit about her perspective. I've got a few questions for Liz that I'm going to ask her. And then Sam's going to talk to you about 10 tips that we're learning, and some of those tips came through to me today. Things like when you're pitching, what to be really conscious of, because it's very unusual for people to get an opportunity to speak to, I reckon we had 30 buyers in the room today. Having your message right on song is absolutely critical when you're doing that sort of thing. So we just want to tell you sometimes what we see and perhaps reflect that back to you a little bit. And then we want to just have, and Clint's going to talk from Try as well. So we're going to get a supplier's perspective of Connect, and then we're going to have Q&A. So hopefully we can move through most of this in the next 50 minutes, and then we can just answer your questions as they come. If you feel like you've got an urgent question, just ask it. I'm happy to take questions as we go, but by and large, there'll be a good chunk of time for Q&A. Okay? Does anyone here not know much about social traders? Okay. I won't actually show you our video. Oh gosh, I should just show you our video clip. It won't start from there, but let me just put it up. So this is who we are.
The world is a great place, but unfortunately, too many people are caught in a cycle of disadvantage. And that hurts us all. But people everywhere do want to help. Every year, more and more people are choosing to start businesses where the aim is to achieve social good, rather than simply maximising personal profit. These are social enterprises, and whether their key motivation is to create employment for the disadvantaged, provide access to essential products and services, or to redistribute profits to fund a social cause, we're out to help and support them. Social Traders is Australia's leading social enterprise development organisation. We work with social enterprises to break the cycle of disadvantage in Australia and to build resilience in Australian communities. We do this by supporting social enterprises to start up, grow and thrive and reach their full potential. We are the only organisation to offer a full suite of services to social enterprises in Australia. Business support, access to capital and development of market opportunities, plus we represent social enterprises through industry activities such as the Social Enterprise Awards and the Social Enterprise Masters Conference. We think social enterprises are the most effective way to harness the marketplace to tackle disadvantage in Australia. And that is why we exist.
So if you don't know who we are, there it is. I just want to kick into this. So when we actually talk about social procurement, I just want to be really clear what I mean. Some people think it's just about social enterprise procurement. It isn't just about social enterprise procurement. What it really is about buying social outcomes when you are buying goods and services. And that can be done in a whole range of ways. You can buy from Indigenous businesses, if that's what your bent is, if that's what you're trying to achieve. You can buy from another company and require them to employ disadvantaged people. You can buy from a company and require them to engage social enterprises. It's actually saying what's the social outcome you're seeking and what's the best method for achieving that outcome. Now, what Victoria is doing at the moment is they actually are driven by employment and training. That's their main driver behind this. However, they just see anyone buying from a social enterprise as doing good. So quite often people are just seeking to buy from a social enterprise to meet some of the requirements. And I'll talk about what some of those requirements are as we go. So I just wanted to talk about a few policies that are actually out in the marketplace that are serious social procurement policies. Some of them aren't about social enterprise, but I want to give you a sense of the wave that we're riding and the opportunity that that wave creates. The first is the Indigenous procurement policy. You may not have heard about this because it doesn't necessarily fall into the social enterprise world, but it's quite staggering. And what it basically requires is the federal government requires 3% of all procurements to be delivered by Indigenous businesses. The federal government spends $60 billion a year. So when you get to 3% of that, it's a pretty significant number, just to give you a sense. So what we're finding is that, well, here's a really nice example. In 2015, before they had this policy in place, the federal government spent $5 million with Indigenous businesses. In financial year 16, when they introduced this, they spent $270 million with Indigenous businesses. This year, they're expecting to spend over $500 million with Indigenous businesses. So basically, every secretary and every department in the federal government now has KPIs against their name around a 3% social procurement target from Indigenous businesses. So I just want to give you a sense of how this landscape's being opened up. And Indigenous has been absolutely critical to the development of social enterprise procurement more broadly. The other agenda that's running through all this is this unusual, sorry, I just saw people taking notes. We can share these slides with you if you're interested as well. We'll just send them around tomorrow, Sam, if I'm pointing at you because I won't be here. Thanks. There's an unusual obsession by state governments with jobs that we've never actually had before. This is national, and I was putting some of these slides together for our event in Sydney, but I really just I think they tell a really interesting story. So the first few are on Sydney and then a few are on Victoria. So in Greater Western Sydney, they've actually committed $60 billion of spend in the not too distant, in the next 5 years, where they are implementing social procurement through that. That's airport, that's new train line, it's new roads projects as well. And basically what they've identified is a deal called the Western Sydney City Deal, which is to drive as many jobs as possible for people living in the greater Western Sydney region. They see this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to address disadvantage in greater Western Sydney using procurement as a lever. And we've all seen traditionally that the New South Wales government already has exemptions for Australian disability enterprises. So anyone here from an ADE, Victoria doesn't have that, New South Wales does have that. And what was really exciting on Thursday is I had a meeting, and Transport in New South Wales is about to release their social procurement policy. And so for the first time, we'll have a state government department anywhere in Australia that has a strong position on social procurement. The Victorian government currently has a requirement in all major projects that there be social procurement. It's a component where you're required as a supplier, as a first-tier contractor, to identify how you will socially procure in the delivery of your works as part of that. So it's a significant shift. And just so you get the scale, it's $30 billion of works. When you add up what LXRA is doing, when you add up what the Metro Tunnel's doing, the Western Distributor, Vic Roads, and we haven't even gotten on to the new North East Link, you're already at $30 billion of works that have all got this commitment written into them. And the Victorian government's releasing a social procurement strategy later this year, which will move out of infrastructure, so it will go into all government departments, and there will be an expectation and an explanation, and we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it will enable all government buyers to socially procure, which will be a big leap. We're told they can at the moment, but we actually don't see it happening because they're not being led to do that sort of stuff. They're not actually being told and endorsed and encouraged to do that. Queensland government's developing a social procurement strategy. South Australia, we're seeing this too in all their roads projects, stipulating content and what the workforce has to look like in the delivery of a roads project. It's quite profound, the sort of shift that we've started to see. I just want to touch on some shifts in expectations. So each of these I think is really significant. The first is ISO. Most of you will, not most of you, some of you will have ISO already. You'll have ISO because it's a standard system, and you'll have accreditation with ISO so that you can win work with some of the companies. It basically is a third-party certification of the systems within your organisation. What's really exciting is ISO, which is a really well-known brand across the world because they are the most important standards organisation in the world, has created a sustainable procurement standard. And that was released in April this year, April 20. And so for the first time ever, there is guidance on how to do sustainable procurement. And what's really exciting is they've integrated social, environmental and economic into that. So sustainability has been synonymous with environmental. For the first time, we're starting to see sustainability being used as it was always intended, which is a triple bottom line position. So what ISO does, which is really exciting, is if a government adopted ISO, or if a company adopted ISO, there would be an expectation that would use this ISO benchmark as the way that you implement sustainability within your organisation, and that your suppliers implement sustainability within their organisations as well. ISCA is just one organisation that's adopting that ISO framework. ISCA is the Infrastructure Sustainability Council of Australia. So if you think there's a lot of infrastructure work coming down already with social procurement, basically moving forward, ISCA, I think 80% of all infrastructure projects have to go through ISCA. They have to get a score through ISCA, which is a measure of the sustainability of the project. In future, social procurement will be central to that. Previously, it was just environmental. So again, we're getting more impetus being driven around social procurement through frameworks. The Australian Procurement Construction Council, which is a government body, has a social procurement working group. Look, I can't tell you, I get invited to meetings with chief procurement officers now that I've never been invited to before. I get to speak at their conferences. It's on their lips now, and it will be for the foreseeable future from what we can tell. What have we been doing in this space? I just want to tell you what Social Traders has done. We've got a bit of a history. We've been speaking out about social procurement for really as long as Social Traders has been around. And what that's enabled us to do is we've been able to track $60 million in our first 5 or 6 years, where we actually influence directly the procurement of organisations, by government bodies or organisations or private companies through social enterprise. We've been very involved in influencing policy and advocating for social procurement. We've got a database of over 5,000 social enterprises, which comes from the Social Enterprise Finder. So obviously people know who we are, what we do, and we have registers and information on social enterprise. And we also undertook research on social procurement. So some of these documents up here, we started an entity called Social Procurement Australasia in 2013. And the reason we did that was because, sorry, I just realised I'm not supposed to move. The reason we did that was because we wanted to bring together different voices to try and coordinate the voice so that they were speaking together and had common messages that they were communicating. There were about 3 or 4 different organisations who came together around this. So we've produced a range of documents. We've got a website. We undertook research into corporate social procurement. That's that document, the far white document. And that was pivotal. I just want to talk to you about some of the results from that research, I think. Yep. So we did that research in 2014. We surveyed 31 corporates through a partnership with a faculty, which is a blue chip procurement consulting company. And basically, what was really astonishing, we started this research in 2012. We said, in 2012, how many of you are buying from social enterprises? And 11 said they were. And that might be one thing worth $100,000. And these are the biggest companies in Australia. By 2015, 30 of the 31 said that they wanted to be buying from social enterprises. So what we're seeing is a growing desire to engage with you. We asked them why they're doing it. So why would you do this? What are your principal motivations? Number 1 was corporate citizenship, and you can replace that with community relations. They're the same thing. They're looking for brand endorsement. Then we got employee engagement, and we think that's really important to them. They're competing for talent in the marketplace. This matters to them because young people are looking for organisations who do good things, and it's integrating their supply chain. And then RAPs, Reconciliation Action Plans, was another driver, particularly around Indigenous procurement. We said, what are the barriers to implementing social procurement? And what they said to us was finding categories suitable for social procurement. So, we buy roads, how can social enterprises be part of that dialogue, Time was the second one. So it's not a high enough priority within the organisation to actually give it a lot of time. But what they said to us is, let's say we've got 9 priorities, you've made the priorities, but you're probably the 9th, right? So you're not big on our agenda, but you're on the agenda. And this was in 2014. Clear business objective to undertake social procurement. So they're not getting the leadership at the moment. Knowledge of social enterprises. And then we said to them, what do we need then to grow social procurement from social enterprises? And they said to us, you need more visible supplier networks, white papers, profiles of social enterprises, networking opportunities, directories, toolkits, training, roundtable, blah, 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 blah. So what we did in response to this in 2014 is we actually put an idea forward to the Potter Foundation for Connect, and we were really lucky. We got a large sum of money at the time to underpin the start of Connect. It was a significant grant, a couple of $100,000. And so, thanks to Ian Potter. I know they're not in the room, but just want to acknowledge those guys. They were fantastic. And we basically pitched for Connect. And so they supported it. And this is what Connect actually looks like. You might have seen this before, but I just want to distill it for you really quickly. So we connect willing buyers with capable, certified social enterprise suppliers to create value. Basically what we do in Connect is we have a product, and our product is a combination of data, and that data is certified social enterprises. We capture the capability of your businesses. And that data is available to all of those organisations, and that data is gold for them because there's nowhere else that they can access that information. We've certified over 180 social enterprises so far. We want to do 300 by July 2018. That's our goal. So just to give you a sense of where we're taking this, What we also do with them is we bring them together in meetings like we had today with our suppliers. We run marketplaces or networking opportunities with social enterprises. We'll work with them to bring social enterprises in to pitch to them in their categories, the most important and relevant areas. We do training with them. We do impact measurement as well. So what we're starting to do, and what Sam and Kevin have started to ask you for, is information on, for $100,000, how much social impact would you have, so that we can quantify that, so that then we can distill it down to $1 equals this many minutes of work, or for thank you it would be these many, one bottle equals X, or whatever it is. So that what we will do with them come June 30 or whenever the key point in the year is, we will give them your ABNs. They will run that through their financial system. They'll say we spent $500,000 with Tri Youth, for example, and they'll say, can you tell us what our impact was? And we'll multiply the impact by $500,000, the $1 impact, and we'll say, actually, what you've done is create, 4 jobs for young people who would otherwise be unemployed. So, and if they're spending $10 million, multiply that out. If they're spending with 5 different social enterprises, then that's what we'll capture for them as well. So we're basically a consulting service with a whole lot of IP that they can access at any time. And then at other times to have bespoke tasks that we don't give in our universal services, and we'll come in and do a specific piece of work for them. So to give you a sense, we've been involved in writing tender submissions for a whole lot of the infrastructure companies over the last 7 months. So we would write the social procurement element of it, or we would advise them on how to do that sort of stuff as well. But we do a whole range of different things depending on the organisation. So that's what we do, and hopefully that's what you're getting, is you're starting to get relationships with suppliers or buyers, that you otherwise wouldn't be able to achieve by yourself. That's the value add that we have. And if I'm to say simply what our mission is to get you as much work as we possibly can so that you can deliver more and more social impact. That's the fundamental driver for our organisation. But they're paying us, just so you understand, they pay $15,000 each per annum to get access to what we have. And we charge them because we have to run our social enterprise, and that's what Connect is for us. This is how Connect works. Really quick distillation of this. We do a lot of work with a potential buyer or an existing buyer around internal engagement. So we'll run engagement meetings with them and workshops to try and get them to understand what social procurement is, to get their staff enthused about it. A number of you have spoken at those meetings where you talk about what your business delivers so that they get to understand what a social enterprise actually does. They love meeting social enterprises. It changes everything when they meet a social enterprise. In fact, we've gone from very resistant organisations to totally engaged organisations within 2 hours of a meeting. It's not unusual for that to occur. And they like us because we're an intermediary. We're not pushing for them to buy from anyone in particular. We're just pushing for them to buy from social enterprise. And if they join Connect, they want to do it too, okay? And I just want to be clear. We don't have favourites. We have you all on a list. And if they're interested in a category, anyone in that category gets put forward to them. I just want to be really clear about that. So Sam will get to some of this actually. I'm just thinking ahead. Sorry, I'm almost cutting across you, Sam. The second thing is, once they're engaged, they'll tell us where the opportunities are that they want to pursue. And so we'll do work in the marketplace. In the past, we've gone out to find social enterprises. Increasingly, we won't. Hopefully, you'll understand the opportunities. And if you're a social enterprise that's not certified with us, hopefully you'll find us because you'll understand the opportunity that's starting to present now. This is not $500,000 of social procurement. This is $30 billion of social procurement that we're actually talking about. And what's really interesting is that we've become the funnel for that work for social enterprises. Not because we don't want you to be part of it, but because this is what buyers want. They want one contact point who can channel them to different social enterprises. So once we do a picture of the market, we actually help the buyer to figure out how they're going to go to market, whether they're going to do an RFT or an RFQ or develop a relationship with you, or if they're just going to talk to social enterprises in a much more informal way and select who they're going to work with. And lastly, I've already said that we measure the impact, so we've got an impact measurement tool. These are all actually of our current members. So I just want to give you that picture, and that picture will continuously be updated on our website. But, and actually Broad Spectrum just committed to join this week, so there'll be another one up there as well. It's a pretty good top 500 list or top 100 list of the biggest companies in Australia. And then you've got big corporations or government authorities like LXRA, like the City of Melbourne, like Digita. So we're starting to get into a space where we are really capturing a lot of buying power. You know, collectively they're probably spending well over 100 billion a year in Australia alone, these organisations, just to give you sort of a sense, I guess. When we certify, this is what we certify against. So we want you to provide evidence that you are driven. This is our definition of what a social enterprise is. We need to see evidence that you are driven by a public or community cause, that you derive most of your income from trade, and that you use the majority of your profits to work towards that social mission. So we need to cite evidence of each of those three things, and Sam will probably tell you about how that might occur. I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the deals that have happened in the last 12 to 18 months. Most of it's really happened in the last 12 months. People didn't really understand what we could do for them in the first 6. But we start, and this is not comprehensive at all. My last point here is contracts to date also include waste, cleaning, catering, design, toilet paper, water, testing and tagging, laundry and more. So we have done somewhere between 15 and 20 million in deals in the last 12 months, just to give you a picture of the scale of opportunity. That's right across Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria. It's about 30 to 40 social enterprises who have obtained work as a result of that process. So just nice picture of a wave. I hope it's clear what I'm talking about here. I just want to finish on 2 slides, which is trying to capture the scale of what we're talking about, if I haven't already. I could probably just stop talking now, but I will just show them because I made these slides, so I thought I'd show them to you the whole way through. Sam's concerned that I'll run over, but I won't. So we've done about 15 to 20 mil in the last 12 months. This is a really important point for me. Our buyers are still very immature in this space, so they're learning. You know, you would have, if anyone was here in the session before, I know a lot of you were, you would see that a lot of them are from infrastructure projects where they actually haven't turned soil yet. So the real work that we can see is in the next 6 to 12 months, that's when it will seriously start to roll out, both for LXRA, the Metro Tunnel, Western Distributor, all those sorts of things. So they're in a gestation period coming up to that quite often. But our other buyers are often more prolific. Lendlease has been our biggest buyer so far, and not Lendlease Engineering, but Lendlease building new communities. So just to give you a sense, they're coming from a whole range of places. About 30 social enterprises have won work. We think government's really critical to the acceleration of this, and the Victorian government's been really engaged in this process, and it's made it very easy. I mean, it's not easy, but it's made it a much easier proposition to have a dialogue with corporates when the Victorian government is leading on some of this work. We have a really strong Victorian buyer presence. Every buyer that you saw on the screen before has a presence in Victoria. Most of them are national, probably 3 of them aren't national. So you're probably getting a sense of, you know, if you're a national organisation, we actually are working with buyers right across, you know, we don't just work with Lendlease in Victoria, we work with them everywhere. We don't just work with John Holland in Victoria, we're working with them everywhere, just to give you a sense. So, you know, some of that means for us that might mean social enterprises can actually move to other states on the back of some of those relationships as well. We've been mapping a number of scenarios for Connect deals over the next 5 years. I just want to give you a sense of scale. Our conservative estimate is that we'll do $150 million of deals in the next 5 years. That's our most conservative view. A moderate view is 200 million, and a really optimistic one would be $500 million. And 500 million, just to give you a sense, I think it would need the federal government to really embrace social procurement. Or if New South Wales and Queensland came on the way that we've seen level crossings and infrastructure in Victoria, come on, we could see this scaling to much more significant numbers. We probably won't get to 500, and I'm quite relieved that we probably won't do that, but I do think it will be very significant, as those numbers suggest. And we're likely to move from 19 members to 50 members I might be disproven in all of this, but that's where we're projecting we'll be getting to in about 2 years' time. So that'll be 2.5 times the buying power of the current member base. What does this mean for you? It really means that every B2B social enterprise, that means any of you who sell to other businesses or government, you have a product or service that you can sell to them, and sometimes you'll be surprised what they buy. What was it the other day? It was flu vaccines. We hadn't even thought to get a flu vaccine provider, but one of our suppliers, a big infrastructure company, said, we just use them on every site if they could do flu vaccines, because that's just something we have to get for every site, So it can be as granular as that quite often. I just wanted to put that out there. Any B2B business has a chance of winning work. Our buyers are looking for more suppliers in more categories. So we have 180 certified at the moment. They're not even comfortable. Like in Melbourne, we probably have 4 cleaning social enterprises. They go, that's good, but we'd like more choice as well. And, we're not going to stop at 4 just because you'd like it to be 4 sometimes. I think you can understand the scale of the opportunity. You want as many people in there as you possibly can. There are gaps in the market that social enterprises need to be adaptable enough to fill. I think that it would be really good if you could say, if we understood where you were prepared to work in other than your main core, and Sam will talk about this, but if you tell us that you do everything, that won't work at all either. No one believes that you can do everything if you say you can. And just ask successful businesses, they usually do 1 or 2 things really well. I think, just want to touch on, this is enormous, there's this enormous impetus around infrastructure. These were just some fields that we see coming up all the time that we struggle to fill. I'm just putting it out there at this point. But if you did do temporary fencing, you would have a lot of work. If you did do traffic control, and I know Marriott's doing traffic control now, but if you did do traffic control, you'd have a lot of work. If you did do signage, making signs, you would have a lot of work. And I'm not suggesting that others wouldn't have a lot of work either. I'm just saying these are categories we can't fill at the moment, and they're significant categories for these different industries. I think when we talk to social enterprise, they often go, oh yeah, we're ambitious and we'll be fine. We're expecting 15% growth per year or 20%. And I guess what we're saying is some could experience much more significant growth than that. We know that you could start up a business that could turn over 5 million a year if you're in the right industry right now, So I guess just be aware that some of these opportunities are quite significant. And we're not promising anything, obviously. You have to develop a relationship, you have to get the commitments that you need to start a business or to scale a business up. But some of them are big opportunities, and some of them are really small opportunities too. If you want $100,000 pieces of work or $10,000 pieces of work, they're there as well. But to be really honest with you, they prefer not to deal with too much small work. Sometimes it's a nice entry point for them, but then they actually want to scale that up because quite often there's probably a distinction. Those who have to do this, the mandated ones, want lots at high levels. Some of the companies like Ozpost, NAB and others are quite happy to have quite small suppliers in their supply chain too. So, I think it caters for the whole range actually. And the social, I just want to go back to that first slide where I outline what social procurement is. The whole social procurement market right now is monstrous. It's worth billions. And I'm talking about direct employment of disadvantaged people. I'm talking about Indigenous businesses and social enterprises. Nationally, it's already in the billions, okay? And I think the challenge for us is to say, how do social enterprises get the most out of this opportunity? How can we make sure that you guys are benefiting? Because all of this is great, but from our perspective, we want to create work for social enterprises. So how do we make sure that we get the most out of this? And hopefully some of what I've said today is sort of, opening up some thought lines for you as well around this. And I just think this is an unprecedented opportunity. I've never seen anything like this. I've been working in social enterprise for 15 years in Melbourne specifically, but even nationally. There's never been anything like this in Australia. I'll be completely honest with you. We're seeing some things overseas that have similarities to what's happening in Australia right now. But I guess, there is this extraordinary moment in time right now. I was just talking to John about it before. He said even the not-for-profit sector is really engaging with his film company a lot better now. But the stuff coming out of infrastructure is going to be a whole other channel of revenue for your organisations that you may not have contemplated. And then when government gets it across government, and when we see more corporates coming on that aren't from infrastructure, you will see other different opportunities emerging. But you can be rest assured that there will be more money coming into social enterprise from those streams than we've ever seen before. That would be, I would feel very confident in saying that. I'm going to stop at this point. I've got to take a breath and have a drink of water. But what we're going to do now is get Liz up. Liz is from the Level Crossing Removal Authority.
The Level Crossing Removal Authority is a government agency, so we're responsible for overseeing the removal of Melbourne's 50 most dangerous and congested level crossings. So that looks like over $6 billion worth of works. And in being responsible for managing that, we're the ones issuing all of the contracts to the big construction companies and tier ones like the John Hollands, CPB, Lendlease, Lang O'Rourke, etc. So we're writing all of those contract requirements, working with them on that delivery aspect and helping to project management different aspects. And then also, I guess, as an administrative office, we're also our own little government organisation that has popped up for this project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what are you writing into contracts? What are you actually asking the buyer to do?
Yeah. So we ask all of our tier 1 contracts, so we package up works of level crossings and some other rail works that we're responsible for as well. And within all of those, we ask them to provide us with a social procurement plan, which includes estimating the types of benefits that they'll be delivering, how they're going to work with social enterprise and Aboriginal businesses, as well as a lot of information around how they're going to provide either direct or indirect employment and training opportunities for people that are considered to be socially or economically disadvantaged. And then in addition to that, we also ask them for workforce development plans, and this is linked into what we want to deliver on our social procurement, and that's where we also include having like a 2.5% target for employment of Aboriginal people. So that's about the Aboriginal employment hours that are worked on our projects, and the Major Project Skills Guarantee policy, which is all about trainees, apprentices and engineering cadets. And within those requirements, some of our contractors, some of our larger alliances also have some specific KPIs, so key performance indicators, which have financial incentives associated with their ability to deliver on different requirements, including their expenditure on social procurement.
So what are you seeing in LXRA on your project sites? Caulfield to Dandenong, Bayswater, all of those sites today?
Yeah. So we've seen a massive upskilling in our industry around understanding what social procurement is. When we first started putting in these requirements, most of them were running around saying, what's a social enterprise and how do we find one? And we've been working with them to help break down different details of what they can do, what the opportunities are and what that looks like. And now we're seeing a real growing engagement of social enterprises and Aboriginal businesses, as well as the fact that we really speak to them about the long-term sustainability, what our drivers are for doing this, that the drivers are not just our project, but all of these other government linkages and projects and connecting them with that. So for a lot of them, we're actually seeing them starting to link back into their corporate head offices to say, look, these projects are asking us for this. How can you support our business as a whole to do it? Because we need this as part of our business as usual so that we can deliver not just for the level crossings, but also for others and in a sustainable way. And do you want some examples? Yeah, so there are 4 of the examples that you put up before were actually from our projects. So like at Caulfield to Dandenong, they've got TriBuild, where the company that came out and built like a shipping container.
Brian and Tig, so
yeah. So I won't carry on about them. We've had it out at Bayswater. Might note that they were actually awarded before we got involved, but because they saw what we were asking for and they wanted examples within their folio to say we're already doing this to help them win future work, they engaged Nebraska to do their printing, Yarraview Nursery to get their plants, Knoxbrook Industries were just out on site a few weeks ago to do soft landscaping and the installation of those plants. So we're seeing lots of different types of contracts happening and an increasing level of awareness for bigger contracts of more value.
And what challenges are they identifying to you in terms of engaging social enterprises in their supply chain?
Yeah, so there's quite a few, and they're probably mirrored in what you stated earlier. I'm very in line with the research. One is that they're not aware of the opportunities that exist within the market. So often, you know, we have a conversation around what a social enterprise or an Aboriginal business is, and they might just think that it's some kind of charity or you can get catering, but they don't have the full awareness of the breadth that's available and a lot of the larger contracts that they can work on. They don't know how they can find them. And for us, one of the big points is that us ourselves and also a lot of our contractors are turning to social traders because it's the only database available for us to figure out who we can engage with, and trying to even scope it out even from a governance level that, you know, we have these targets, and for us one of the things we know is when they report back to us about their social enterprise, if they've got a tick from social traders, we don't have to think twice. Whereas if they don't, then we'll have to figure out ways that we can work to verify whether that meets our definition of a social enterprise or not. Other challenges are that it's not part of the standard way that we procure, particularly on projects where everything happens in a very quick fashion. Heaps of it is based on who you've worked with before and who you know and those networking opportunities. So if they haven't had a chance to meet a social business and learn about what their capacity is and what they can do, that's just a huge gap. Trying to get them to shift away from known suppliers that they already have. They don't want to ruin relationships that are already existing. Figuring out how they can engage a social business as well, because often it's a targeted approach, so we need to know what the opportunities are, then we need to target those businesses, and, you know, figuring out even their clauses for if they say, okay, well, we'll add social value in to help a social business get across the line, but then even when they do that, there's, you know, questions around, well, how do we actually measure social value? What's the clause that we would put in here? And, you know, are there going to be any issues with working with them? Is there going to be a difference in timing? All of these types of queries and concerns. Yeah.
It's all right, Liz. I'll just ask you to take a seat and I'll bring you up during the Q&A. Is that okay?
Yep. Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
This is Clint from Tri-Youth. We just wanted to take a buyer's perspective and certainly the policy setter's perspective, and then just get a social enterprise who's, I guess, benefiting a lot from this at the moment. So you can hear from Clint. Clint, it'd just be great to hear what you do as a social enterprise.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. I'll just give you a bit of an insight into what Tri Australia does. So there's several parts of the organisation. We employ about 400 staff nationally. The first part of the organisation is children's services. So we offer low cost and fee-free childcare services across the state. The second component is mentoring, which is what the organisation's actually based upon. So we work with young people all across the state. So we do one-on-one mentoring. We also run group mentoring programs. The third component of the organisation is social enterprise. So one of the social enterprises that we have is Try Clean. So Try Clean is a social enterprise that works with disengaged young people, and they actually work with a professional for our clients. So the objective is they start with us for 4 hours a week. We transition them up to about 25 hours a week, and then the objective is to get them into full-time employment. So a lot of these young people are quite marginalised, and our objective is obviously to get them to a stage where they can actually work, in a normal functioning setting. We also have property maintenance that's part of that component, and
the same sort of scenario. We work with young people that are highly disengaged, highly marginalised, and give them all those appropriate supports that they need, so they're able to function in the workplace.
Give us a sense of the scale of the business.
So the business started, I'll tell you when it started. So we started in 2015, in July. We started with a couple of clients. We're into double digits now, which is good, and we're continuously growing. So
it's probably worth looking at your first job that had something to do with rail in particular.
Yeah, sure. So I'll touch on TriBuild. Yeah. So TriBuild's another one of the social enterprises that we have. So effectively what we do is we run a factory out in Dandenong South. We work with young people. The young people might come from Youth Justice. They might come from the Department of Human Services. They may have been kicked out of school 5 times. They may be a refugee. They may have a disability. So it's a really blended group of young people. And the objective of what we're trying to achieve with them is they do a Cert 2 in building construction, but it's done in a supported way. So we have about 20 young people that actually do that particular course. And from there on in, our objective is to actually connect them into full-time work. So whether that be an apprenticeship or whether that be, connecting them into the workforce.
So maybe let's get to some of the work that you've been doing.
So we've done one project. It was for the rail crossing removal, and it was a kitchen, and it was made out of a retrofitted shipping container, and it also had a mess hall. So it was 2 40-foot containers. We're also working on a project at the moment, which will be an information hub. It's been really, really exciting to actually see it eventuate from an orange container into something that's quite bright, functional, and obviously something that hopefully the client's going to absolutely love. With these 2 projects that we have, obviously there's the monetary component, but there's also the social impact. So those 2 projects have generated about 1,400 hours of education for these young people. So they're working on full-scale projects that they wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to work on if they went to a traditional TAFE setting.
And so, we're involved in some of those projects, but how many leads are you getting now from the rail project?
It's been absolutely fantastic. Look, it's spiralling. I think if you lead to the question of where we obviously had no connection with the rail crossing removal previously, and Social Traders has assisted us in actually getting in front of these particular buyers, and there's so many different opportunities that have become available to us, which we're really grateful for.
And so where do you see this heading for you guys?
Sky's the limit. So from our perspective, it's really, really important. We've got a whole group of young people that are disenfranchised, disengaged, don't have a lot of opportunity. Projects like this give us the opportunity where we'll be able to hopefully get to a stage where we can sustain this as a business, and we'll be able to not just train these young people in doing this, but to also employ them. Yeah.
And has it moved out of the TriBuild into some of the other areas of your into the other social enterprises?
Yes. So we recently tendered for the Northeast Project Alliance, and that was for commercial cleaning. So that was a project that we wouldn't have had access to previously. And again, if that occurs, that creates an employment opportunity for a disadvantaged person. Effectively, every job that we get that creates either education or further employment. The most important thing, I think, is that 100% of our profits are reinvested back into the community. So it's a triple bottom line plus.
Thanks, Glenn.
Okay. Thank you.
If you could just hang around.
Yeah, sure.
We just wanted to give you a taste, and one thing that Clint does that's fantastic from our perspective is he tells us when he wins work. Other people don't necessarily tell us when they win work, so we don't know the stories that we'd love to be able to tell as well. So I would really sort of stress that you liaising with us, communicating with us on leads, on opportunities, on wins is great for us. I mean, we will find out eventually somehow, but usually it's vicariously, and it's great if people can be in touch. And I know there are others in the audience who do keep us up to date, and I'm not really kicking the other people. I'm just saying we'd love it if you were telling us when leads were being generated. What I'd love to do is just get Sam up here to walk through these 10 things that we've learned over the last 18 months.
Did you want to do questions?
No, we'll do it with you as well. Liz, can you stay for another 20?
Thanks, Liz, and thanks, Clint. That was great. So Mark's talked a little bit about how Connect works. So being in a fairly unique position, having visibility over the demand as well as the suppliers, we're in quite a unique position to be able to share a few insights with you of what we've learnt when we talk to buyers and they give us feedback on what we're doing, which is also gives us feedback on what you're doing. And so we've just kind of nutted together the top 10 things that we thought we would like to share with you, and also, most importantly, what you can do about those things that we've learned. So what we see is that, and you've heard this from Liz as well, that buyers can't easily find social enterprises. There is no, magic website apart from the one that we provide them that can clearly articulate what social enterprises exist. They don't like raising your expectations before they're ready to buy or before they're ready to engage you. So if they're bidding on a project that might be 18 months away from getting underway, they're actually quite reluctant to come and talk to you and find out more about what you do, because they don't want to raise your expectations. They want to be able to build it in with the information they can access from us or from a source where they don't have to spend the time and also raise your expectations. They certainly want independent verification that you are a social enterprise. And our buyers have access to the information that our certified social enterprise provide 24/7. So Mark mentioned there's about 20 buyers at the moment. All of those buyers have 10 logins. Every organisation has 10 logins to the members page. On that members page is a live list of the certified social enterprises and all of the capability data that you have provided as a certified social enterprise. So those 10 logins in each organisation are actually usually per department. So you've just kind of got this multiplier effect of who you're accessing. And you've also heard Liz say that they are proactively looking for opportunities to engage social enterprise. So the value in having your information in there, complete and accurate and up to date, is enormous, even though you might not know that they're looking. They're all looking. So I guess that's the main message about what you can do about that there is make sure you're certified, make sure that what the information that you provided us is not just a slapdash, Sam's just hassling me to do this, I'll just get it out of the way. Make sure it presents your business as you want it to be presented to those marketing departments, to the procurement officers in those buyer organisations. So we've been sending out renewal links to your organisations to update your information that if you're already certified. And we've also sent all of you, if you're not already certified, we've sent you invitation to apply for certification. Now, if you can't find those links, then obviously send us an email and we can get that information to you. And also, if you want to have another look at what information you've got on there, please just email us because we actually have to generate a link for you to do that. Okay? So to give you an idea of just a comparison of the capability statements that the buyers see, okay, this is an example of something that's really poor. They see that buyers, and this is what the buyers will see, when they log in and they click on an enterprise, say, okay, I want to find out more about ABC Catering, this is what they get. These are the sorts of fields that they get. It's actually refined a little bit since this was done, but more or less. There's nothing there for them to go off, and we've actually got examples in the list that are like this. So there's nothing there. The buyer can't really make any sort of a beginning of a decision. And if you look at then, compare one, and a dummy one that I did up as well, for one that's more complete. Okay, if you're a buyer, which one are you going to use? It's pretty obvious. You'll go to the one that's got complete information, that's got the amount of detail that you need to at least make that first decision for you. So make it easy for the buyers, and also if there's a competitor of yours in the room or otherwise that has complete information and you don't, it's leading the buyer to your competitors. Even more so if you're not even on the list, if you're not certified to start with. So tip number 5, face-to-face meetings and presentations are so powerful. So today we ran the networking session. That's part of the face-to-face kind of interactions that we help to facilitate. Nearly every one of the deals that Mark mentioned earlier has involved some kind of a face-to-face meeting, whether it's directly through us or whether it's just they've got your info from the list. It's a meeting, it's a presentation, it's a pitch, it could be any of those formats, but it's really important to get your spiel and tailor it to the length of time that you have available. It's important to really tailor what you say to those buyers. And we invite that and we encourage that interaction a lot between buyers and suppliers. And we've learnt a lot and we see a lot and we think, oh no, don't say that. Oh yeah, that was good. It's really important to very first state your commercial offering to the buyers that are in front of you. So don't talk about your broad partnerships, your broad social objectives first. The first and foremost thing that these buyers want to know is, what can you do that's useful for me? Make sure that's up front and centre. Make it something that's clear and relevant to them in their current context. If it's an introductory meeting, don't pitch 10-year partnerships. Pitch something that's low risk for them. Briefly outline your social enterprise's purpose. So keep that brief, and I know that's why you all do what you do, is the social purpose. But these buyers already know that they want to buy from a social enterprise. You actually don't need to convince them a whole lot on that. It's good to be clear about what it is, but you can keep it quite short and simple. Keep to the time limit, have just one speaker, okay? We see some examples where we have multiple speakers when they've got a 2 to 5 minute time slot and it just doesn't work very clearly. Highlight what you're good at, which, as I think Mark mentioned this one before, don't say you're good at everything. Just talk to them about what you're really good at. Fine to say that you can sidestep into things that are related to what you're doing, but don't go in and promise, oh, we can do anything. They won't believe you, and they will then lack faith in your ability to deliver what you are really good at. Buyers strategically identify opportunities and suppliers. So it's interesting to see when a buyer comes on board with us as a member, what we see is that there's usually an internal champion, or it may be a couple of internal champions. Sometimes they're very senior if it's a client-driven driver that they have to engage social enterprises. Sometimes that's very senior. Sometimes it's actually the CSR person who has no direct relationship whatsoever in terms of purchasing or procuring. They need all the help they can get to help engage internally. Sometimes that means that they've got months and months of work to do before they can even think about their organisation buying from a social enterprise. They've got a lot of internal engagement work, a lot of meetings to have, a lot of people to convince. So for them, unsolicited approaches to say, hey, come and, buy from us, how about this contract, how about that, it can actually be quite distracting for them when they have a very strategic approach to the way they want to engage social enterprise and social procurement more broadly. It's rarely the right service at the right time if it's random unsolicited contacts. They will also come to us when they have a particular need, so we will let you know if there's something that's relevant. It's better to use us to your advantage to help, saves you time as well. Corporate buying practices are very complex. I'm sure some of you are highly aware of that, that it does take a lot of different people within a large corporate to change what they do, essentially. Sometimes spend a bit more time, sometimes do things quite differently. And also recognise that buyers are legally required to go through a competitive process, and they all have different thresholds for when that needs to occur. All buyers seem to be different in that aspect. But generally at some point, they can't just do things on a handshake deal. So you actually do need to understand what the barriers are for the buyers in terms of their internal processes. So ask them a bit about that and how they go about it. But also you've got to actually be prepared to compete. And Mark talked a bit about, the opportunities for growth that we have coming up. It's important to recognise that competing is going to mean that you will need to take the step into more tenders, more competitive processes that may be fairly onerous, but we're working with the buyers to help keep those as simple as possible. And the final ones here, what we hear from buyers is that social enterprises are generally presumed to be less capital, more risky, something like that, and that buyers are very risk averse. So we hear that. They may not necessarily tell you that, but that's what we do tend to hear. Our recommendation is leave room when you're pitching or quoting for work, leave a bit of space for over-delivering on what they've contracted you to do. And also, and that's at least in the first contract or the first purchase in their relationship. Also, identifying small, straightforward ways to engage initially is really valuable. So I think I said before, don't go in pitching 10-year partnerships. Look at, okay, what am I really good at? What can I do easily that's low risk to the buyers? So it's really picking up on those things. Talk to them about those things first, get them underway and build the relationship from there, would be our suggestion. So they're really some of our top 10 learnings from the buyers.
I couldn't resist actually when Sam was talking to put some things in that I really wanted to say too, because she spawned some thinking. And one of them I heard from a big buyer, and they said, we love your list, but sometimes people say they do 5 different things on one capability statement, and it's really confusing for us. So you do testing and tagging, you do grounds maintenance, you also do catering, and you also do something else completely unrelated, like labour hire, all on one thing, right? And they don't understand what you're good at, because all the stuff that you then went on to write about having referees and things could either relate to one of those or all of those areas. We don't really know. I guess what she was saying to me is do one capability statement for one social enterprise. Within your business, if you run 5 businesses, do 5 capability statements. And we can certify them all, and you'll have 5 times more presence on our system that you currently have. Okay, so I would really reiterate that back to the audience that if they're closely related, that's fine. Put them on the same thing. But if it's catering and grounds maintenance, they're completely different industries. Don't put them on the same thing. Do separate entries for that, and you'll be much more likely to be found. You're much more likely to be found. Your websites are the second place they go. I'll leave it at that. And in pitching, they don't want to hear about DES and Job Active. I'll be really clear about that. Any other acronym that you use with them will just disenfranchise them. They don't know what any human services term means. They don't care about them. As much as they don't care about unrelated things in your organisation, they do not. They hate acronyms because it's, you know what it's like. If you're hearing acronyms all the time and you can't relate to them, it's very, don't talk about those sorts of things. Focus on what they do know, which is, if they're interested in thank you water, that's what they really want to know about. They don't actually want to know about, the aid organisation RFDI over in, Sri Lanka that we work with, because it actually won't mean anything to them, okay? I just had to get those three off my chest. It's over to you now. So you've got 4 speakers who you've been hearing from for the last hour and a bit. What's come up for you? Are there any questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Michael.
And it's more about social enterprise landscape.
Yep.
The charity sector is about $103 billion
Yep.
as an industry. What's happening in the charity sector around actually having social procurement policies? Because you don't see it much as a formal component of their procurement.
I have views. We've never, all our efforts have not been on the charity sector because their spend is not. The other fact about charities is that most of what they do is pay wages, whereas most of what our businesses do is buy stuff, okay? So I worked at the Brotherhood of St Lawrence, 80% of our spend would be on staff, 10% would be on centralised costs, and 10% would be external purchases, So their ability to spend a lot with us was quite tight. They're very cost constrained as organisations. They're trying to save money all the time. So they've never been the big focus for Connect, that's for sure, just to put it out there. We think we're going to get a lot more bang for buck out of government and out of corporates. That's the way that we pitched our entity. I don't disagree with you though. I think, I worked at the Brotherhood. We said, can we have all the lawn mowing for all of the hack contracts that the Brotherhood has? And they said, no, you can't, because it's too cost sensitive. And we really like the people that we've had for the last 10 years, even though you employ disadvantaged people and you're a business of the Brotherhood of St Lawrence. I'm not kicking the Brotherhood, by the way, but I know other organisations that have had exactly the same experience. Even internally, they won't buy from the social enterprise. It's not unusual. Other comments, questions? Shoot.
Is it all right to get the microphone to us? Sorry,
We've got one
it'll just be much better for us to pick it up.
I was just going to ask about the sort of those dot points about what a certified social enterprise was, and one of them was that more than 50% of profit is self-generated. And so I work for a community, like a not-for-profit organisation that then has several income streams that operate as social enterprises. So all of the profit from that goes into our NFP, but our NFP as a whole is not actually, that's not 50%. And I was wondering, do we qualify, and if not, sort of what was the strategy behind that, and how might we still fit in a little bit?
Yeah, sure. That's actually a really good question, and it comes up quite a lot because a lot of social enterprises sit within a not-for-profit and they're one component of a larger not-for-profit organisation. So to certify a social enterprise, we would look at the financials just of the enterprise. So very often that's actually an internal financial report that we would look at. So an internal P&L for, you might call it a business unit or you might call it an enterprise unit. You might call it a program, whatever you call it, but it's an internal P&L, and we would look for where the revenue comes from in that at that level. And also just to give you an idea too, that we don't, that P&L, an internal report, well actually any of the P&Ls, that information is not accessible by buyers. So that's just for our purposes to certify you. We don't share that with the buyers. It's really the capability info that we would share with buyers. Yep. Is that?
Thank you.
Yep. Good.
Can I just clarify on that? So
Sorry, we need you to. Sorry, you're on film. No, your voice is on film. Sorry.
Just so the 50%, does the social enterprise need to be generating a profit of 50% that's then going back in?
No, so there's 3 criteria. So the first one is that the primary purpose is social or a community benefit. The second one is that you generate at least 50% of your revenue through trade. That's if you're 5 years old or more. If you're younger than that, the percentages are lower. And the third thing is that at least 50% of the profits that are generated from a social enterprise, if there are any, are reinvested into the social purpose, the primary purpose. So that's the 3 key things.
Question at the back.
Can I just go back to that question of financials? Are you getting any pressure from the large corporates to only recommend people who have stable financials? Because that's what I was from gamekeeper. I was trying to employ social enterprise. I have to make sure that they were stable financially before I gave them a service that was taken by commercial enterprise. So last time I used change suppliers and then up all the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. That's a great question. So we don't, as I said, we don't share any of the financial reports with the buyers. What we do is we certify as a social enterprise. We provide the capability information that you provide us. We provide that to the buyers, and really then we leave it up to you and the buyers to really work out what is an appropriate engagement. If they're comfortable, they do their own due diligence as well. So they don't rely only on the information that we provide to them. That's really just a first cut, a first sort of, is this vaguely the right kind of business to talk to? And we certainly tell them that, look, there's no sort of guarantees on our part that this enterprise is going to be right for the engagement that you want. We leave that up to them to do that level of due diligence work. Yep.
Yeah, Michael, shoot. Wait, it's coming.
Just something more on topic. Liz, one of the points that came up earlier was about not making unsolicited contacts within the organisation. How do social enterprises actually then help you to get traction and to get buy-in with the decision makers that you have to engage with to get that change internally within your organisations?
Thanks, Michael. So I guess with that point, we sort of agree to some extent, but not wholeheartedly on that, because for us, what we've seen as an authority ourselves, and then also for our contractors, is that this is a really new area for us, and we're really trying to build our understanding and awareness as a whole. So making those connections and those networks, even a lot of the social businesses that we've engaged, there's been some kind of referral or network that's happened in there to help us become aware of the business and their offering and their credibility within that space. So I wouldn't say that no contact is there. I guess it's just more when you do make contact, being clear about what it is you're offering and the expectation of where it might drive. But for us, really, what we've been really dependent on, what we've been really dependent on is that relationship with the Social Traders Connect program and the social enterprise database, so that we're selectively picking, we've got these types of contracts and these types of services, what businesses are out there that we can engage with. And then when we do that website part of it is also a huge thing, where we've had businesses that may not be listed, and if we go to the website and it doesn't tell us any more information that helps us understand whether it's a social business, then they drop off of the list straight away. Yeah.
And, I don't know, social enterprise websites within parent organisations are an absolute nightmare, I would have to say generally. That it's hidden somewhere on the 18th page, and you've got to click through 3 links to get there, and when you do a Google search you might or might not come up on it. So I would sort of say getting an identity is really important.
And I could also add another example well that our contractors have been organising more of their own events to help create those connections between different parts of their business or different parts of their project and businesses that can provide for them. And at least one of the events that's already happened and another event that is planned, I know that they've both gone to social traders to actually have them develop the list of enterprises that meet their business needs, and then they do their own, review of that list to determine who they're going to invite along to their event and facilitate that direct connection.
I reckon we've got time for one more question. Yep.
Okay. Apologise for this horrendous Glaswegian accent, but I was born with it. You listed opportunities on one of your slides that businesses are looking for, social enterprises. It can be by line savings, but where do you see that? Because if I'm sitting in a dark room trying to think of what the next social enterprises I'm going to develop, then it'd be ideal to know what it is somebody's looking for before they develop it. Not very targeted.
No,
how do we get that?
Well, I guess that's kind of the purpose of today, is to start to educate you about what we're seeing. We would go out normally to organisations that we think could lend their hand to some of these areas. So we've been looking for those organisations. We've been talking to organisations who we think might have a complementary, because their business kind of is at the peripheries of this sort of stuff, or we could see how they could turn their hand to it. I guess the other piece that we do is that Social Traders historically has been a capacity building business, so we've been talking to our Crunch program to try and inform them about where the need is moving forward, where the demand is, and they're rolling that into what they're looking for as well. But if you've got good suggestions for us about how to communicate that, we put all our opportunities on our website, so we're telling the world these are the opportunities at the moment. Probably what we're not telling the world is these are the unmet opportunities at the moment, and maybe there's something about that for us as well. And also, I guess at the end of the day, we can say there's an opportunity, and then there's a lot of work that has to happen after we've flagged that there's an opportunity. You wouldn't start a social enterprise on the back of no commitment from someone. You'd really want one of them to say, yes, I'm going to go with you. We're signing up an agreement to move forward together, because you're going to have to do a whole lot of investment to scale up to build a business that can meet their requirements in those industries. But yes, we need to get better at telling you where we think the opportunities are. There's no question. And perhaps behind that, who you should be talking to in those organisations in terms of confirming that opportunity and the scale of that opportunity. Look, what we're going to do now, and thank you for your questions, thank you for your time, thank you panel. Sorry Clint, no questions for you today, but I'm sure I want to talk to you afterwards. I just want to thank the people who have come and presented to you today, particularly Liz and Clint. I really appreciate it, taking time out of your day to come and speak about this. We just want to spend the next 25 minutes with you having afternoon tea. You guys love getting together and actually talking to each other, so we want to facilitate that. What we will do after today is we'll share those slides with you and give you a reminder about getting your capability statement more up to date than it currently is. And we'd really cultivate that, encourage that, because if you really think about it, it's the first website experience that any buyer will have with you, generally speaking, is what you put forward. And if you're investing thousands into your website, think about investing a day into your capability statement, or half a day, to make it look as good as you possibly can, because that's your calling card. That's the business card they're actually going to look at, okay? Otherwise, if you're not a social enterprise certified yet, we'd love to certify you. If you're already on the books, thank you, great. Hopefully there's going to be tons of work for you in the next 12 months. Let's all have tea and coffee together and say hi. All right, thank you.